Hello everyone, thank you for clicking on this video. As it says in the title, this is a moderate opinion. So thank you for taking the initiative to include a new opinion in your research. I originally wanted to make a video that would claim total neutrality, but at the end of the day, I have my own personal biases. You have yours, your news station has theirs, so the best way to get a full view of the whole political climate is to survey opinions from each camp. And I hope you gain something from mine. In this video, I'll talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses from both Donald Trump and Joe Biden that I've found in my own research. At the end of the video, I'll tell you what I'm going to do in this election, and I'll talk a little bit about what you can do. First, let's talk about the incumbent candidate, Donald Trump. We'll start with some of the strengths we've been able to see from his presidency. His administration has overseen efforts to remove federal regulations, promising to eliminate 2 regulations for every new regulation installed. He has far exceeded that promise, on average removing 8 regulations for every new one. Some of the old regulations are not only obsolete, but they're expensive. Deregulation during the Trump administration has saved the federal government over $50 billion. Cutting regulations from agencies like the EPA and the CAFE essentially limit the amount of power that these non-elected agencies can wield, which is important to keep tabs on. The administration has been very kind to veterans, who have sacrificed their time and their safety, and are sometimes only repaid with PTSD. They can now get disability claims easier. Trump instigated many conservative fiscal policies, which tend to help the economy, and in the 3 years leading up to the coronavirus pandemic, we were doing pretty well. We had a bull market, which means a good market. Trump supporters also often champion his strong military decisions that have kept pressure against antagonistic Middle Eastern countries, and helped show no tolerance for aggression against the United States. He is also the first president ever to actually enter North Korea. In June 2019, he held a meeting with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. So that's progress. Now I should mention that I'm going to dismiss some pros from both Trump's evaluation and Biden's evaluation. And these are the ones that show how effective the candidate is in weakening the other party. And I'm not about that. I hope we can focus on bipartisan compromise and agreement, rather than continue to waste our time with, "But the Republicans are all racist! No, Democrats are the ones that are pushing communism on us!
You
support oppressing women! Yeah, you do! It's not productive? More on that later. In any case, I'm dismissing claims about how well one candidate takes down the other one. So let's look at some negatives. Trump has a calculated style with his rhetoric. His strategy seems to be to simply overpower concerns, with an opposite statement powered up by a superlative, or some reference to the magnitude of his accomplishments.
I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life. Number 2, racism. The least racist person. In fact, we did very well relative to other people running as a Republican.
Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
I'm not going to give a list.
I'm a little tired of that. Speaking of magnitude, Donald Trump's history with women is an huge concern to me. There have been over 25 allegations of sexual assault raised against Donald Trump. And while I'm nervous that false claims could take over our politics just to defame candidates, I don't think we're quite there yet. If I had to make my own estimate, and it would be a very rough estimate, I would take about half of those cases to be valid, maybe round up. So I think it's reasonable to suggest that he has sexually assaulted 13 women, which is not okay. Another thing that bothers me is just how divided the country is right now. Every election year, you'll find the right yelling at the left, and the left yelling at the right. But this year, is it just me, or is it kind of hotter this year? The battle for the soul of the nation. Now recently, Trump suggested that he might not accept an unfavorable outcome, and tons of his supporters are behind that, which of course has the left up in arms. And the people on both extremes cannot believe that the other side won't listen to the voice of reason. Kind of a mess. Now, is Donald Trump completely at fault for this? Definitely not. However, his capacity to unite the nation and promote bipartisanship has been lacking. The next thing I want to mention is that Trump is probably racist.
Chinese virus. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. In the end, Mexico's paying for the wall.
Remember the wall? He's unfortunately positioned as the embodiment of white supremacy right now. So now he's become kind of a rally flag for people who felt disenfranchised during the Obama administration. Now this isn't to say that his entire constituency is racist. It's about him. He helps some people feel safe in being racist. So that's kind of lousy. Now a strength that Trump has is his willingness to dare to see things as they could be. However, he often extends that vision beyond reality.
Disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside? And hopefully we're going to come in below that 100,000 lives lost. We're on track to deliver and distribute the vaccine in a very, very safe and effective manner. We think we can start sometime in October.
Okay, so the last concern I have with Trump is his ability to evade scrutiny. He was impeached by the House, claiming he tried to bully Ukraine into influencing the 2020 election. But he was able to raise enough pride in his standing amongst his supporters that the Senate ultimately voted not to even see evidence. This bothers me because they didn't discover his innocence through due process. They just decided not to look. And the cases of sexual assault have just dried up without any outcome to the charges. And he fires people who investigate him. And by now, I'm convinced that he's simply a master at covering things up. Not a fan of that. Now for an intermission! Trump had every right to appoint Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. That's his right as president. And there's no reason he should stop doing his job in the time period leading up to an election. And I criticize the left for trying to stop him. Frankly, with the Democrats favored in the House, Senate, and the presidency, according to the poll data, it would be nice to have some balance in the federal government. At least one branch will end up with a Republican majority, to check and balance the other two branches that will probably end up Democratic. Okay, on to Biden. Let's talk about some of Biden's strengths. Frankly, the thing that I find most attractive about Biden right now is that he's more calm politically. Trump attracts a lot of media attention, which tends to cause disputes between the parties. So I wouldn't mind a little recess with Slow Joe. Biden was also widely accepted as the most conservative candidate during the Democratic primaries, which provides for more balanced policy coming from him. I like that. I also appreciate his platform, which provides for the naturalization of illegal immigrants. Now, a side note, the most common concern that I hear about illegal immigration is that they're taking our jobs. Well, they're not taking your job. They're picking grapes and they're flipping burgers. Now, a citizen would most likely have been offered that job first, but then turned it down. Many immigrants are working these jobs for far below minimum wage and are happy about it because it's way better than where they came from. And by the way, when did we forget about what it says on Lady Liberty? Okay, back to it. Joe Biden supports bipartisanship in his statements. And while the far left still demonizes the right, Biden really doesn't. His choice of running mate was fantastic. Kamala Harris was a lawyer, and with her background in law enforcement, she could temper the anger against police forces often associated with the left. Their platform provides for imposing national standards of accountability to police forces, rather than defunding them. Now let's shift to Joe Biden's negatives. Joe Biden also has a history of violence against women. And while most of the allegations against Joe Biden speak poorly of his discretion, a touch on the shoulder and the likes of that, there is one case that really bothers me. Tara Reid, who was Joe Biden's secretary, claimed that Joe Biden sexually assaulted her. Now, following my previous rule of dividing by 2 and then rounding up, that one counts. You guys, I just want a president who doesn't assault women. Is that too much to ask? There's another concern that Joe Biden is getting up there in years. Some of his speech has gotten slower, and he has a tendency to trip on words.
Oh, the rapidly rising I don't know.
I would eliminate the capital gains tax. I would raise the capital gains tax.
We choose truth over facts.
And although I haven't seen any evidence of dementia or his ideas becoming any less cogent, there's still the possibility that age could take its toll in the next 4 years. He also shouted Trump down and told a US president to shut up during that awful debate.
Will you shut up, man? Listen, who is on...
And while I would have been pretty angry and maybe done the same thing, he should have been better prepared to set an example of dignity to the US community. So Joe Biden is not terrific. I wouldn't necessarily be excited if he made the presidency. I don't really like either candidate. However, my overall position reflects what most of the polls are saying right now. Even though I'm more of a right-leaning moderate, I'm going to settle for Biden this year. I want to avoid another 4 years with Trump, and I want that enough to skip voting third party this year. And I'm voting in Wisconsin, which is a swing state. Now I'd like to challenge the parties for a moment, who hold way too much unconstitutional power about who we can viably vote for. If you want to stay in power, you'd better give us better candidates next time. I promise, if the parties give us the same embarrassing situation all over again, I'm going to work really hard to rally support for third parties. I think we're long overdue for a party reset. For both parties, frankly. California's entrenched as a big blue state, and Utah will never ever stop voting red. And so on, and so on, and so on. You guys! The extremes always vote the same, so it's the moderates who determine the election. Every state should be a swing state. Everybody should try to be more moderate. Break away from news reports that have extreme right and left biases, who dredge up obscure quotes and misconstrue positions to demonize the other side. Get real. Republicans are not all white supremacists, and Democrats have no goal to kill babies. They're barbers and flight attendants and nurses and school teachers. Beware media that would illogically condemn large categories of these people. I've had people of my faith from both sides throw this sort of media at me in an attempt to convince me that I should have some righteous obligation to support their party. For shame. Your party would definitely abuse power if it was given unanimous support, and that's why we have checks and balances. And I believe that a balance between parties should play into that. I believe we should be willing to vote for both parties as they swing between right and wrong. Okay, so the most important thing that you can do is vote. I want you to vote. Exercise your right, fulfill your responsibility, and no matter who you vote for, I'll be proud of you for voting. And I will accept the outcome. So make sure to request your absentee ballot ASAP if you need it, or make a plan to vote in person on November 3rd. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and leave a logical comment below for me to read, or a charged comment below for me to ignore. And look for some helpful links that will help you formulate your plan to vote.